Lion discovers ranger tied in the wild. The ending will bring you to tears. The heavy, humid promise of rain hangs low over the sprawling African savanna, pressing down on the cracked, drought-stricken earth like a suffocating, invisible blanket. The twilight sky is a bruised, chaotic canvas of deep violet, charcoal, and bruised plum, illuminated only by the intermittent, jagged flashes of distant, silent lightning that cast long, skeletal shadows across the plains.
Beneath the sprawling, thorny canopy of an ancient acacia tree, the acidic, metallic scent of raw fear and fresh blood pollutes the rapidly cooling night air. A man, dressed in the violently torn and dirt-stained khaki uniform of a wildlife conservancy ranger, is bound inextricably to the rough, unyielding bark of the trunk. Thick, fibrous sisal ropes bite deeply into the sensitive skin of his wrists and chest, the coarse texture grinding against his bones, drawing beads of dark crimson that smell faintly of copper, sweat, and absolute despair. Out of the suffocating, inky darkness of the surrounding brush, the towering, majestic silhouette of a massive male lion emerges, his colossal paws making virtually no sound against the dry, brittle grass. His amber eyes catch the scarce, silvery light of the emerging moon, glowing with an otherworldly, piercing intensity. By every unforgiving law of nature, this apex predator, driven by the primal, intoxicating scent of vulnerability and human blood, should immediately claim his helpless, easily subdued prey. The ranger, his breathing shallow and erratic, squeezes his eyes shut against the impending agony, anticipating the fatal, crushing strike of jaws that can snap vertebrae with effortless ease, his own heart hammering a frantic, deafening rhythm against his bruised ribs. But the fatal strike never comes. Instead, the great beast lowers his massive head and exhales a low, trembling chuff, a haunting, resonant sound that defies every predatory instinct etched into his ancient DNA. The lion presses his massive, velvet, soft nose against the ranger's freezing, trembling cheek, the incredibly coarse, sunset-colored fur of his magnificent mane brushing gently against vulnerable human skin. It is a moment of impossible, breathtaking tenderness in a landscape defined by brutal, unapologetic survival. A profound mystery that begs us to question everything we thought we understood about the emotional capacity of the wild. Before we journey deeper into the heart of this unbelievable true story of survival and devotion, we invite you to become a part of our global community. Please take a fleeting moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below telling us exactly where in the world you are watching from and what time it is there right now, as your engagement helps us continue to uncover and share these profound, tear-jerking stories of interspecies connection. To truly understand the miracle unfolding beneath the ominous, stormy African sky, we must step back in time, retreating into the gentle, golden hour light of years past, where the unbreakable foundation of an extraordinary brotherhood was first painstakingly laid. The atmosphere back then carried the sweet, intoxicatingly herbaceous smell of morning dew clinging desperately to the tall elephant grass, the rising sun painting the endless savanna in brilliant, warming hues of emerald, amber, and soft gold. David, the dedicated ranger, now bound helplessly to the acacia, was a man whose very soul was inextricably woven into the complex, beautiful fabric of the wild. 5 arduous years earlier, he had discovered a deeply malnourished, orphaned lion cub abandoned in a sun-baked, dry riverbed, its fragile coat matted with burrs and smelling intensely of decay, sour milk, and parched, powdery dust. David had immediately named him Kalahari, a tribute to the vast, resilient desert. For exhausting, sleepless months, David had tenderly bottle-fed the fragile, shivering creature, his calloused hands becoming intimately familiar with the delicate, downy, cloud-like texture of the cub's newborn fur. Their profound bond was forged in the quiet, isolated hours of the dawn, bathed in the soft, peach-colored light of the rising sun that chased away the bitter chill of the African night. They developed and shared an unspoken language, a deeply empathetic, silent dialogue consisting of subtle glances, ear flicks, and perfectly synchronized steps across the dusty compound. Kalahari eventually grew into a magnificent 400-pound sovereign of the open plains, a creature of staggering muscle and lethal grace, yet he never once forgot the distinct comforting scent of his human savior, a familiar grounding mixture of rich wood smoke, strong bitter coffee, and the sterile, sun-dried cotton of a freshly washed ranger uniform. Even when Kalahari was successfully and cautiously reintegrated into the sprawling, fenceless expanse of the protected wildlife reserve, their connection remained a powerful, invisible tether stretching across the miles. Often, David would sit patiently on the dented hood of his sun-baked Land Rover, the searing, oppressive midday heat shimmering in visible waves above the dark green metal, and Kalahari would magically materialize from the blinding mirage. The giant cat would greet his old friend with a deep, rumbling purr that vibrated violently through the very soles of David's heavy leather boots, a physical manifestation of love. It was a partnership built on absolute, unshakable trust, a rare sanctuary of mutual respect thriving amidst the unforgiving, violent cycle of life and death that universally defines the untamed wilderness. But the wilderness is inherently as treacherous and unpredictable as it is breathtakingly beautiful, and the fragile, hard-won harmony of their shared world was violently, irrevocably shattered on a sweltering, windless Tuesday afternoon. The stagnant air was thick and heavy with the choking, powdery dust of the late dry season, the blinding, white-hot light of the merciless midday sun bleaching the vast landscape of all its vibrant color, leaving behind a stark, overexposed wasteland. A heavily armed, ruthless syndicate of commercial poachers driven entirely by the lucrative, bloody, and illegal underground trade of wildlife trafficking ambushed David's solitary anti-poaching patrol in a dry ravine. The chaotic, desperate struggle that ensued left the heavy air tasting sharply of burnt cordite, metallic blood, and bitter, pulverized earth. Outnumbered, brutally beaten, and completely overpowered, David was dragged for miles away from his designated patrol route, his uniform shredded by thorny bushes. He was viciously lashed to the solitary acacia tree, the rough bark tearing at his back, left to the merciless, dropping temperatures of the elements and the inevitable, gruesome arrival of nocturnal scavengers. Back at the Conservancy's heavily fortified headquarters, the once calm atmosphere rapidly morphed into a sterile, suffocating nightmare of rising panic. The cramped, dimly lit telemetry room smelled nauseatingly of stale, nervous sweat, bitter adrenaline, and the sharp, metallic tang of overheated computer electronics. The head wildlife veterinarian and the lead tracking experts stared with growing, cold desperation at the frantically blinking red dot on their digital topographic map, the signal from Kalahari's state-of-the-art GPS and biometric collar. The clinical signs transmitting wirelessly from the Lion's tracker were deeply alarming and entirely, terrifyingly erratic. Kalahari's resting heart rate, usually a steady, calming, rhythmic thrum, was spiking dangerously into the red zone, signaling extreme, unprecedented distress. His internal body temperature was rising rapidly, and his movement patterns across the digital grid were frantic, chaotic, and entirely devoid of his usual, calculated, stealthy hunting patrols. The seasoned experts watched in helpless, paralyzed terror as the biometric data progressively worsened, logically suggesting the prized lion was suffering a severe psychological break, exposure to a deadly toxin, or a massive, unseen physiological trauma. The frantic keepers repeatedly radioed for immediate armed backup, their strained voices cracking over the static-laced, failing communication channels, but the impending, violent storm, a monstrous tempest bringing the sharp, tangy, electrical smell of ozone and impenetrable walls of blinding. Sideways rain permanently grounded their search and rescue helicopters. They were catastrophically failing on all fronts. David was missing and presumed dead, and their beloved Starlion was seemingly spiraling into an unexplained, deadly biological panic miles away from his designated safe territory, lost in the raging darkness. Yet the terrified experts helplessly analyzing the sterile glowing computer screens could never have possibly deciphered the profound, miraculous emotional truth currently unfolding on the rain-soaked, violently windswept plains. The massive storm finally breaks the suffocating tension in the sky, casting stark, terrifyingly beautiful silvery blue shadows across the rapidly flooding earth with every strike of lightning. The torrential rain falls in heavy, stinging, icy sheets, slicking Kalahari's magnificent, voluminous mane completely flat against his powerful, corded neck, transforming him into a sleek, aquatic predator. He stands resolutely over David's slumped form, the relentless water finally washing away the metallic, predatory scent of blood, replacing it entirely with the raw, deeply earthy, comforting perfume of wet, disturbed soil and crushed, damp leaves. The terrifying mystery of the lion's dangerously erratic clinical signs is suddenly, breathtakingly clear in the darkness. Kalahari was never sick, nor was he poisoned. He was actively experiencing the agonizing, intense physiological mirror of David's own unimaginable suffering. The fiercely loyal lion had obsessively tracked his surrogate human father across miles of unforgiving, treacherous terrain, guided entirely by an invisible olfactory map of human fear and the distinct, beloved, fading scent of wood smoke and coffee, now heavily tainted with the acidic, sour tang of severe physical trauma. As the shadows at the very edge of the clearing begin to shift maliciously, and the chilling, high-pitched, hysterical giggles of a massive clan of spotted hyenas slice sharply through the booming thunder, the high-stakes truth of Kalahari's terrifying presence is fully, awesomely revealed. He is not just visiting his fallen friend, he is standing as a deliberate, living, breathing shield against the encroaching nightmares of the bush. With technical precision born of both immense predatory intellect and a desperate, burning devotion, Kalahari ignores the rapidly approaching, deadly threat of the hyenas for a crucial, perilous moment. He lowers his massive, heavy head directly to the thick, unyielding sisal ropes viciously binding David's pale, freezing hands. Thick, warm saliva drips continuously from the lion's jaws, splashing hot and humid against David's freezing, rain-slicked skin. Instead of tearing blindly at the human flesh, as his instincts might dictate in a frenzy, Kalahari uses his razor-sharp, bone-crushing incisors with surgical, terrifying delicacy. He grinds his teeth meticulously against the tough fibers of the knot, systematically severing the friction points of the coarse, swelling rope. The lion knows fundamentally that he lacks the human dexterity to untie it, but he knows with absolute certainty that he possesses the power to destroy the restraint. It is a breathtaking, unparalleled display of high-level cognitive empathy, an apex predator consciously suppressing his overwhelming fight-or-flight response to perform a meticulous, calculated rescue operation while completely surrounded by lethal enemies in the freezing, deafening, torrential downpour. Agonizing hours slowly bleed into the muted light of dawn. The violent, raging storm finally, mercifully giving way to a gentle, weeping, misty drizzle that coats the world in silver. The angry sky softens dramatically into a breathtaking canvas of delicate pastel pinks, soft peaches, and muted lavenders, the early morning light filtering through the breaking clouds to cast a hopeful, ethereal, golden glow over the exhausted, battered savannah. The deafening, rhythmic roar of a heavily modified rescue chopper eventually drowns out the gentle, awakening sounds of the wet bush, its massive blades beating the heavy, humid air into a frenzy and violently flattening the rain-weighted, shimmering grass. The heavily armed, exhausted response team bursts frantically into the clearing, their heavy combat boots sinking deep into the thick, clinging, dark brown mud. They freeze instantly, their raised weapons lowering automatically at the unbelievable, sacred tableau presented before them. The thick ropes lay in entirely frayed, useless, sodden ruins on the wet ground. David is slumped heavily at the base of the scarred acacia tree, barely conscious, his skin alarming pale, cold, and slick with the remnants of the freezing rain. Wrapped entirely around his broken body, radiating a massive, furnace-like, life-saving heat that smells intensely of wet, clean fur and deep, wild musk, is Kalahari. The critical healing process begins not in the sterile, brightly lit confines of a modern hospital room, but right there in the primal mud of the earth. As the terrified but determined medics cautiously approach, Kalahari does not aggressively defend his territory or treat David as a possessive kill. He merely shifts his immense, muscular weight, stepping back just a few deliberate inches to allow the humans access, yet stubbornly keeping his. Heavy, deeply scarred, leather-padded paw resting gently, protectively on David's shivering knee. The physical reconnection between the rescued and the rescuers is absolutely mesmerizing to witness. David, shivering uncontrollably from the violent aftermath of shock and severe exposure, slowly reaches out a deeply bruised, purple, trembling hand to bury his weak fingers deep into the thick, coarse, warming ruff of the giant lion's neck. In that sublime, transcendent moment, the terrifying, prolonged spike in the lion's heart rate, frantically documented by the terrified experts miles away, finally begins to settle into a calm rhythm. We are privileged to witness the profound biological miracle of synchronized breathing. This breathtaking, logic-defying encounter beneath the scarred acacia tree permanently shatters the rigid, arrogant boundaries humanity so often places between ourselves and the magnificent animal kingdom. It forces us all to deeply confront a profound, humbling philosophical legacy that echoes endlessly across the golden, sun-drenched plains of Africa. For generations, we are taught in sterile classrooms to view untamed nature purely through the cold, clinical, unforgiving lens of base instinct, the brutal survival of the fittest, and rigid biological imperatives. Yet, Kalahari's heroic, tender actions speak volumes to an ancient, unspoken universal wisdom, an undeniable testament to the vast, largely uncharted, and deeply profound depths of animal intelligence and pure emotional resonance. The lion absolutely did not save the fragile ranger out of a misplaced sense of territorial dominance or a confused, unnatural maternal instinct. He saved him through a deeply realized, highly conscious, and sacrificial empathy. It is the purest manifestation of a sixth sense of love, an invisible, spiritual, vibrating frequency that effortlessly bridges the vast evolutionary gap between entirely different species. When we finally strip away our towering human ego, our modern technology, and our destructive weapons, when we stand completely vulnerable and bare beneath the vast, glittering, starlit canopy of the wild, we discover a beautiful truth. We learn that the capacity for unwavering devotion, selfless sacrifice, and profound healing compassion is absolutely not exclusively a human trait. It is, in fact, a universal language, spoken eloquently in the quiet, gentle nudges in the dark, the shared, life-saving warmth pressed against the biting, unforgiving cold, and the miraculous, rhythmic beating of two entirely different hearts perfectly synchronized in the terrifying face of death. The earth inherently remembers the pure kindness we sow into it, and sometimes, when all hope is seemingly lost, it sends its fiercest, most terrifying guardians not to destroy, but to tenderly return the favor. As the triumphant morning sun finally, fully crests the distant horizon, burning away the very last lingering tendrils of the silver mist, and bathing the vibrant, wet, emerald-green savanna in a triumphant, blazing, life-affirming light, David is gently lifted and carried to the safety of thee. A waiting helicopter, his fragile human life miraculously preserved by the absolute most unlikely and terrifying of saviors. The unforgettable, tear-jerking story of the broken ranger and the devoted lion remains a powerful, enduring beacon of hope for us all, permanently reminding us that even in the most brutal, unforgiving, and violent environments on earth, pure love possesses the power to conquer the absolute, deepest darkness and completely rewrite the fundamental, rigid laws of nature. If this incredible, emotional, true story of Kalahari and David touched your heart, brought a tear to your eye, and moved your soul today, please hit that like button to continuously support our channel's mission. Subscribe and turn on all notifications so you never, ever miss a deep, cinematic journey into the profound emotional depths of the natural world. Please share this video with a friend or family member who desperately needs a beautiful reminder of the quiet, unseen miracles that happen around us in the wild every single day. And before you finally go, we genuinely want to hear from your heart. Have you ever personally experienced a profound moment where an animal seemed to miraculously understand your deep emotions, your sadness, or your physical pain in a way that completely defied all logical explanation? Share your beautiful personal stories with our community in the comments below. And until next time, please always keep listening closely to the unspoken language of the heart.